All right, we are live. Okay, hey guys. I think I am probably visible. If someone from the admin, if you can just confirm me in the chat, that would be great. Hi guys, this is Siam. We are live, just setting some basics. We'll start within 2 minutes. Thanks for sticking with us for last 2 days. You need a lot of motivation to be persistent. So great. So we're just gonna wait for a minute or two just for everyone to settle down. Thank you, thank you. Thanks for the comment about the shirt. Yeah, it has all the like Wi-Fi and other funny symbols in it. Um, okay, all right. So we have we'll definitely do a session soon. I think we can probably start now. Let me share my screen. All right, I think my screen is visible. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me actually just for the safety, let me just open this in my phone so that I know that I am showing up. Okay, great. I think we can start now. All right. So thanks again, everyone, for joining our last class. Again, thanks again for sticking. It shows that you guys are sincere. Uh, if someone is not able to join in the Slack, help them with giving them the link. You guys have been super supportive with each other. That means a lot. So I think we kind of like went through the story of why we started Get Me Hired. So I'm not going to repeat any of those today. I think we shared the sense of like why building something together matters, and it's always more fun to like win with more people together. Like doing something together has something good, not only as the end goal, but also while you're going through the journey. So I think we covered all these topics. You guys understand the need of community and why that's one of our core, I should say, like ethos of Get Me Hired. Yesterday, I shared one of my stories. If you hear any of our stories, Mentor Iftekhar's story, Sakibul's story, you'll see that all of us have very interesting stories in their lives. I'm sure that all of you guys are going through a lot of personal stuff too. Um, and we have a tendency of seeing each other as I read this somewhere that like we think that we are the most complex people and everyone else is like black and white, but everyone is complex. Let me actually just stop the Slack because it's just going to like ping me the whole time. So yeah, so I believe that everyone has a story, and it would be great if I could connect with each and every one of you and kind of like just hear your story out and share the experience. Maybe that day will come someday. But yeah, like it's great that what happened like last 2-3 days. I'm sure that you guys are enjoying it. We are completely loving it. Like from day one, Iftekhar actually messaged me right now to just say thanks to you guys. That like yeah, like it reminded him. He's like a kind of like a very senior level person, works in Amazon, like have kids, wife and kids, have like a very settled kind of guy. And he like you guys reminded him of like the college days, like of like just being lighthearted and fun. So um So yeah, like thanks a lot for that. Sakib, he also updated his LinkedIn status yesterday. He just said that, it was like he doesn't like teaching, but when he does something, he does like he gives 100% of it. And then he like someone made a meme for him, and then it was like it was one of the best days of Sakib's teaching career. So yeah, so things like small things like this, these are all like getting into our stories. So thanks a lot for giving us these amazing memories. Like last day of anything is always kind of like bittersweet. For us, it's definitely we'll miss this. I hope that you guys will miss us too. But I'll not delay too long for the before I land this to Sajid. But I'll just share one of our students' stories, and then we'll go right into the class. So um, I think you guys already probably know of what we do in Get Me Hired. I'm sure that you guys checked out the website. We are a boot camp where we are like we just have this community feeling like embedded into the boot camp. Otherwise, we have like some um, more structures which we talked about yesterday. So I'm not going on those details. So I'll talk about this guy. His name is Asif, and he actually uh, started with us this year's May, and he was not a like he was not from computer science. He studied industrial engineering. I don't know if you guys know of industrial engineering degrees. It has like obviously it gives an engineering mindset, but it doesn't. They do not have a lot of programming. Degrees like electrical engineering has probably a little bit more exposure to programming. But anyway, so Asif started with us in May, and then he basically was very humble from the beginning. We loved him from day one. We thought that he will land a job. Anyway, so like he was going through this, like he went through kind of like a 3 month with us, and then we started marketing him on the fourth month. He was very sincere. He was doing all his homeworks. He was one of the most sincere students in the class. What we also realized that we mentors cannot actually help the students unless the student like helps themselves. So we are eventually just like advisors or accountability partner, however you say it. But unless the student is actually like putting their part of the effort, it won't go anywhere. So anyway, Asif was very receptive to feedback. Whatever we told him, he learned it. He was also very hungry to learn, so he was looking at materials outside. He was also like one of the student leaders, so he was like helping other students. So anyway, like when we launched him in the market, he actually was very like he realized that he doesn't know a lot of stuff, because in 3 months it's very difficult to have full like knowledge on like a wide range of topics, especially if you're not coming from a computer science background. But the next 2 months was a little bit hard for him. He just kept giving interviews. I think he started getting his first offer after he gave his fifth or sixth interview. He started getting offers after he gave his fifth interview, and then he was so depressed. We spoke when he was in the like the job market. We spoke with him almost every day. Asif spoke with me, Ishtiak, other mentors, like saying that, oh, like Siam, I'm just feeling so depressed. I don't know if I can like crack this interview. Like I don't think like I have learned enough. But somehow I don't know what happened. Like after I think like 2 or 3 weeks of staying in the market, after going through a lot of like lead code challenges, he solved a lot of programming problems. He just brushed up his entire bootcamp skills again. He went back and studied like redid all these homeworks. um, I think after 10 or like I think after 10 or like 15 interviews, he just called me and said that, hey, see, I'm like, I think I should target for like I'm not going to target for any other company than the big top tech companies. So I'm just going to target for like the FANG companies now, like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, like these companies. I'm like, okay, so sure. So anyway, so by, I think within 1 month of staying in the market, this is the 4th month, he had at least 3 or 4 job offers in his hand, and he was literally he was getting 50 calls per day from recruiters. And every week he was giving like 4 or 5 interviews. And then after a month or 1.5 month, he had like 3 or 4 job offers. Anyway, so after he finally decided on taking this offer in Home Depot in Atlanta. His first job is 85K. He landed an 85K job in the first job, not being a computer science graduate, which also offered him, like to do H1, like he's an international student, so he needs like visa permissions as well. So they agreed to do like his visa, like take care of those things too. So like we had an impression that, okay, like someone, like maybe he's not from a computer science background, even if he gets like a 65K job. I started with my first job, I told you the story. My first job, I actually started with 60K. After 3 years it became 140K because I jumped around. But Asif got 85K, so he's even better than we are. So yeah, so that's the like we personally believe that if Asif can do it, if I can do it, people like non-computer science background can do it. Then obviously if you guys have a computer science background, and if you have the community, I think like you guys should be able to definitely do it. So just wanted to share a story of one of our students. He's like, I'm sure that he will be a great leader one day. But yeah, just a small stories. Like I personally live for just hearing stories. So uh, that's what you'll probably hear mostly from me. But anyway, so I'll jump into the real stuff, why you guys are here for. So number one is we'll have the regular class. This class will keep it a little bit more humane, and by human we mean that we'll have a longer Q&A session. But let me give out the agenda first. So we'll have the regular class. Sajid will be taking the class, kind of like wrapping up what you guys did last 2 days. How can you basically launch it into a domain, and also like he'll talk about architecture and give you like a holistic idea of how all these things come to a bigger picture. But we definitely need a lot of feedbacks from you guys. First ask is that we need ideas of what the next workshop topic is. We had so much fun here. I'm sure that we're probably gonna do it next month, or like we want to do it monthly. If not monthly, we'll do it like once in 2 months, but definitely we are doing more workshops. So we need detailed, thorough feedbacks on what can the next workshop be, and what the why we should cover some technology, and what should be those technologies. So definitely need feedback. I'll be sending out the feedback form in the YouTube soon. And yeah, and also like just the feedback of the workshop we already did. So last 2 days we had like good classes. The first class was, you guys know that it was like like a technical difficulty, but it's all learning. Like now we have figured the video thing out. So but yes, but definitely give us feedback on how we can improve the next workshops. As you know that we are all software developers eventually, so we believe in iterative improvement, so it will just keep improving iteratively. And finally, the personal Q&A. This is very important. This is a little bit different than the other Q&As we did before. This is, you guys can do it anonymously as well. If you think that anonymous is better, then you can message me in Slack. Siam Hussein, I think you guys probably know me in Slack. Message me directly in Slack, and I won't mention your name. This is basically like if you have any struggle or any difficulty that you are facing to get into software, you can. We're taking anonymous messaging today, so feel free to ask any kind of career suggestions you want. There are a lot of people, especially on the background. There are other mentors here as well, so they can jump in if necessary. But yeah, like ask questions like how do you basically land a job in Microsoft, like things like that. So try to get as much information about you can get for your career, like get like a high level view of your career. So ask questions like that too. So beyond what we are teaching in the workshop, ask career based question too. And we kept the Q&A session longer today so that we can answer all of those. Details for today's class: it's a 60-minute class. It's a little bit smaller, the class, but we will do a longer Q&A session. Type your questions in YouTube chat or on the Slack. If you want personal anonymous questions, feel free to message me directly in Slack. My name is Siam Hussein. As you know, like video recording will be there. Homework, if you submit the homework within next 2 weeks, that's fine. We do not want to continue this, like, like we do not want to give like too late deadline. I think it should be done within 1 week and next 1-2 days. But yeah, like we can probably provide certificates even if you're submitting the homeworks in next 2 weeks maximum. And then yeah, post it in the hashtag homework submission channel, and then you'll get the certificate. Instructor today is Sajid. Lives in Seattle, or he's a software engineer in Microsoft. Yeah, I've been like I have known Sajid for a while. He's a very sincere mentor. I hope that you guys can find a name for Sajid too. Yeah, Sakib and Iftikhar both had a name and a meme, so we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think this is a yeah, just like let's focus on the class and ask questions, be active in the Slack channel. And yeah, I think I'll just hand over to Sajid now. Stop sharing my screen and I'll go mute. Sajid, are you in? Ready? Hey, Sajid, I think you're mute.
Hi.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks, Yam, for the introduction, and I'm excited to be part of GMH, and hopefully we'll have a good session and then go from there. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, cool. I'll just go over briefly like what we have done in day 1 and day 2. Day 1, Iftikhar kind of showed how to create a single page Angular application using Angular, and the application was styled using Bootstrap CSS, and there was a lot of new things that he kind of mentioned, like HTML, CSS, and then he used command prompt to bootstrap the application and then build the application and then create the distribution for the application. And there are a lot of concepts in Angular that he went over, like NGE, components, and then things like that. And on day 2, Sakib, he showed us like how can we deploy the code that Iftikhar developed on day 1 into a cloud server. So he created a VM in AWS EC2 instance, and then he installed a web server in Nginx there and uploaded the code over there. And then he mentioned that like there was an issue because the IP address assigned can get changed. So he introduced the concept of elastic IP and used elastic IP to the instance, and then we were able to go to the our application using the IP address. So today we are going to take this a little further. So we will create a domain name and use the domain name to visit the application that we build. So first thing is like, what is this domain name thing? So The concept is that like when we want to go to a website, we don't use IP addresses because it's very difficult for us to remember. So we remember the address in a different form, like nytimes.com or espn.com. So the web browser needs to know, like when I type in an address like this, like where to find the content for this address. So basically, like we need DNS, which will translate this domain name into an IP address. So that is the purpose of a DNS resolution. So what it does is basically we give it an address, and it will give us an IP address, and then the browser knows like, okay, where I can find the content to display. So this is the purpose of DNS. So like, how does this happen? So basically, like when we type something in the browser, the browser will try to first look up that, hey, I'm looking for this address. Do I know where to find the content of this address? So it might be the browser already had made a request for the content, and so there might be a cache where we already have the IP address. So cache is basically like a kind of a something that we use a lot. So basically, it's like a lookup store. So basically, it's a lookup store kind of thing. So if it's not there, we have to make a request and find the address. So basically, that's how it works. So here I will try to go through like the concept of the domain name. So like a domain name, what do I mean by a domain name? Okay, so the thing is that like suppose like en.wikipedia.org. So a domain name, like this is the name, but kind of like we view it as a tree structure. And the root starts at the right. So basically, like the first, the root is basically the or the top level is the org, and then below org we have Wikipedia, and below that layer we have en. So the org is the top level domain. Like there are like different kinds of top level domain. I think there are like 13 different kinds of domain we can have. Like one is org, then there is .com, then you can have .net. For educational purposes, we have .edu. So that's how a domain name is formed. And the main thing to remember is that the root is always at the right of the address. So basically, like the root for the address here, en.wikipedia.org, is org. So that's our root. And so now, like, how do we, if my browser wants to find like where is the content of www.wikipedia.org. So my browser will call the DNS resolver and say, hey, I want to find, I want to see the content from this web page. So how do I find it? What the resolver will do, it will say that, okay, it will first make a call to a root name server. So the purpose of the root name server is it is going to give us some IP addresses that it knows about the top level domain. So like the 13 things. So basically, like it knows where the addresses of org name server are located. So basically, like the DNS resolver will get an IP address. So this is our link here, the first one. So basically, we get an IP address. So basically, this is another name server, and this is another name server. So the DNS resolver will query this name server and say, hey, like I'm looking for this www.wikipedia.org. Like, can you tell me details, like if you know something? So it will say that, okay, fine. Like I know like where you can find org name server. So it will return me another name server address, and then this continues iteratively until we are able to resolve the IP address of the address that we were looking for. So basically www.wikipedia.org. So basically this is the IP address at the end. So once my operating system gets this information, it will store this information into a cache, because this looking up is kind of like you have to make some queries. So we don't want to do it again and again, because usually like this does not usually change often. So subsequently, when I'm going to hit my www.wikipedia.org, my browser is going to call the DNS resolver, and the DNS resolver will say that, okay, you already went to this web page, and I know the IP address, and it will give the browser the IP address, and the browser will get the content of the site from the IP address. So this is how a address resolution work. So like this is a very slimmed down version of how this works, because there are lots of lots of complexities here, but we don't need to worry about this thing. This is just a very basic idea of how this thing works. So nothing more. We don't need to get more complicated about this thing. So now, I already kind of like created an. So now the point is that, like, okay, fine. So how do we create a domain name? And then the second thing is that how do I point my domain? How do I connect my domain to the browser, to the web server IP that I have? Like if the Sakib already configured an Elastic IP yesterday, which points to the Nginx server. And using the IP address, I'm able to get the content that Iftekhar built on day one. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a domain name, and then connect this domain name to the IP address that Sakib created on day two. So like we can do this in a lot of places. Like there are like GoDaddy. We can configure a domain name over there, but like we were using AWS yesterday, and AWS has a lot of capabilities, so we thought that why. So we wanted to just show you how to configure a domain name and connect it to an address in AWS. So they have a service called Route 53 Management, where we can create a domain name and do this address mapping. So I'm just going to show you how we do this. So basically, so if I'm already kind of logged in, and this is the console. The service that does this thing for us is called Route 53. So I'm just going to go there. And so first thing, like as I said, like I already created one yesterday, like gmhportfolio.net, so for testing purpose. But today I'll just go through the steps again. So when we want to register a domain, we first have to make sure that the domain we want to register is available, because like the www.google.com that is taken, so I cannot register the domain. So first of all, I have to be able to find a domain name suitable for my purpose. So basically, I'm just going to try to see if I can find any meaningful domain name for this session. So okay, so basically it says that like this domain name that I was testing that GMH dash portfolio, this domain name is available. So I am just going to go ahead and check this thing out. I'm just adding this into cart and kind of continue. So one important thing is that like privacy protection is, yeah, you cannot look that information up. So I'm just going to continue. For now, I just don't want to renew my domain. And then I'm just going to accept the terms and condition and then submitting my order. So one thing is that like domain registration sometimes can take time, but usually like from experience, as far as I understand, like usually in AWS, it's fairly quick, like probably it takes like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we can configure our domain to point to the Elastic IP that Saqib already created in day 2. So, okay, so AWS console is saying that my registration request has been successfully submitted. So I'll just go there, okay. So it is in progress. So meantime, when this is in progress, let me kind of dive into something else. Let me dive into something else. So there are some useful Windows command that we can use to understand understand how this networking thing works. So one of our very common thing is like a very common command, like everybody probably knows, like ping command. So ping command what it does is test connectivity. So I already have configured, if I know, GMH portfolio.net. Did I type it correctly?
I removed that. Hey, Sajid, one feedback. Can you increase the browser font a little bit?
Sure.
When you show, I mean, not right now, but just whenever you show. Thank you.
Okay. Browser font. Okay, so let me share my command prompt. So let me see how to. Is the content, how does the content look right now? Like, does it need some adjustment, or it looks okay? Okay, so I'm just going to, okay, so I was saying that like I'm going to show some commands that are useful, so one of the commands that I wanted to show is the ping command. So ping command kind of like test connectivity. So basically this is what we're registering. Okay, this might not be configured yet. Anyway, so I'll just show like kind of like how do we, okay, we're pinging Google and then we're getting back a response. So basically I know that I can, that like I have connection to internet, and then like this site is up. So this is what this command does. So one other useful command we have is we want to see the DNS cache. So if like my browser already has a lot of DNS cache, and I want to see that. So that command is ipconfig. That command is called display DNS. So basically, like as I was mentioning that like looking up DNS every time we make a request is an expensive operation. So the operating system has a cache. So basically, like this is my cache from my operating system. So basically, we can see that uh, this record, um, like this address translates to this IP address. So like this domain name translates to this IP address. And whenever my browser is going to make a call to any of these address, uh, the information will be read from this cache. So that's the concept. So there's another concept so there's another concept is like how long is this cache valid? Because it might be that sometimes uh, the domain name to IP address, that link might change. So if that happens, if my browser has an old information, I'm going to be redirected to a wrong page. So there's this concept of time to live. So time to live is a concept that kind of tells me that if I have this information in my cache, how long is it valid? It is something that is provided when we configure a DNS. Um, so, so that is TTL. And so let me check if my domain name is successfully, no, it's kind of still on progress. We'll get back there. And then there's some other kind of useful commands that we have is that like we want to find we want to find um, uh, the IP address for a or for a particular address. So for that we use like ns lookup. So ns lookup, if we use google.com. So basically, like, okay, so basically this tells me like the information that I get is that like, hey, this is my domain name, and this is the translation of this is my IP address. So if I want to look up any IP address, I can use this command ns lookup. And we already showed like a ping command, and then we showed display DNS, and then we did NS lookup. And there is one other thing. Sometimes we like have issues in our networking, and then like we want to flush our local cache. So this is something like sometimes happens that like my record is outdated. I want to flush my cache. Flush my cache means like I want to delete everything that I have in my cache. So we have another command for that that is called like flush DNS. So flush DNS, what it does is that all the cached DNS information that I have in my operating system, it is going to be removed. So successfully flush my DNS resolver cache. So these are kind of useful commands that we have. And then let me check if my domain registration is on completed. It's still on progress, but I'll try to show you something else while this is kind of going on. Let me try to show my let me try to switch back to my browser. Okay. And okay, so I've tried to increase the font so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So as I was mentioning that the domain registration is kind of a process. We'll give it a little bit more time. But in the meantime, I will share an important statistics that I was looking up while Siam was telling that like there's a lot of opportunity for us to there's a lot of opportunity for software developers. So like I live in here in the United States, so I was looking up, in this Bureau of Labor Statistics page. So what they do is that like they kind of try to make an assessment, like for every kind of job that there is in the market, that like what is the how many people are currently doing this kind of job, and what is the prospect of this kind of job in the next 5 or 10 years. So they try to make an assessment. So this is this page. So you can see that I am in software. So basically, like this is level statistics, and the job is for software developers. And you can see that the Siam already shared his stories, and he shared Asif's story. You can see that the median pay for 2018 was like 105 K per year. And you can see the number of jobs as of 2018, like how many people are doing software development, like it's like 1.4 million. And what is the outlook? Like the outlook is that like the growth rate is like 21%. So the expectation is that like the number of opportunities will grow at a very fast pace. Like the average is like 5% over all jobs, but for software development, the growth is very high, like 21%. And like the number of jobs that are new openings for this category, is estimated like it's like 285K new jobs. So this is expected to come here in United States. So basically, like there's a lot of opportunity for us, for anybody who wants to do software engineering. You can always learn, and from Asif's story, you can see that like you don't have to be a software developer to be a software engineer. You don't have to have a degree in computer science to be a software developer. You can come from other background. The only important thing is that you have passion to learn, and you want to learn, and you give time and effort, and over time you get good at it, and then you can be a software developer. This is the most important thing. I'll just try to check back and see if my registration is complete. It's still in progress. So okay, let it we'll give it a little bit more time. But while it's kind of finishing, I can show you the one that I already configured. That might be a good idea. Okay, I think this is completed. Okay, cool. So okay, so what I did, I'll go back again and make sure that you get it. Like, so basically, like this is my DNS management page, and this is my domain that I just created, gmh-portfolio.net. So basically, so I said that there are two steps. One is I need a domain name, and the second step is I need to associate my IP address with this domain name. So I go inside this domain name, and then I need to create a record set. So okay, so the record set that is most important is kind of that I need to give it an IP address. It is called it's a record. It's called a A-type record. So let me just see what is the IP address that we have. I think it's 35. Just give me a second. Okay, this is not the IP address. Oh, okay. I can look it up in my other. I think in my. Just give me a second. I think I should have it here. Okay, sorry. This is my address. So if I use my IP address. Okay. So if I use my IP address, I can go to the hosted Nginx server that is hosted in AWS. So I am just going to use this same IP address to configure my newly created domain. So I'll go back to my hosted zones. This is the one I was created today. I want to go to my record sets. I want to create a record set. Then, so we're going to create a type record set. A is for address. So I'm going to give an address here. And then I am going to say create. So, okay, so the one thing I was telling is the TTL. TTL is like when I created the domain, I can specify how long, if someone caches the record, how long it should be treated that valid. So I can, like, ideally, if my website is stable and I'm not going to change my content, or I mean, I'm not going to point my domain to a different server, it should be high. But usually, like default, sometimes it's like kind of 1 hour. So I'll just put 1 hour as the TTL, and then hit create. So, and I have to, I thought I had to have save button here. Let me refresh. Okay, cool. So let me, okay, I think the binding kind of takes a little time, but I'll try to see if, okay, cool. So basically like the binding is kind of instant, happens instantly here. But ideally, so you can see that we configure this domain and then we associate the address of the Nginx server in the AWS instance to this domain. And now if I hit this address, I'm going to get the content. So this is the steps that we wanted to show. And I will go back to my presentation. So basically, like, what did we do in this 3 day? First day, we created a single page Angular app. And I know like it is a little bit hard to grasp a lot of Angular concept in day one, but Iftikhar did a great job at showing some of the highlights of Angular. And then second day, we created the web server and deployed the code. And today what I did was that, like, okay, fine, we already have the code deployed in the web server, but hey, when we want to show or send a friend of ours to look at our page, we don't want to give them an IP address. It's kind of weird. So we created a domain name and configured it to point it to our web server. And so the thing is that, like, this is what we did so far. But the thing is that, like, is this the kind of the end, or like what is next, or what else can we do? So the first thing is that, like, full stack web development, there's a lot of things that a full stack web developer needs to know. We kind of went through some of the steps, like Angular. It's kind of it's a view layer. Like, it represents what we see in the browser. So like it's called a view layer. And like Iftikhar mentioned that, like, one of the strong benefits of using Angular is that, like, there is a two-way data binding. And so that's Angular is kind of the view layer. View layer means the presentation layer means like what I see in my browser, or if so that is my view layer. But like when Iftikhar was showing the page, like his experience, his education, like he put the data inside the component of the Angular. But in a real world application, it might be that we don't want to have the content all in the single page. So what happens is that, like, we usually, like, Angular has a thing called service. What a service can do is it can make HTTP request for content. So maybe, so like if I have a Java application, a REST Java RESTful application, what it can do is that like maybe the Java application will have a RESTful endpoint that provides the information which the Angular application can call. So basically, instead of having the information in the front end layer, um, like is for dynamic content, we will need a backend server, a backend layer. It can be done using Java. You can do it using C Sharp, C Sharp. Also, there are like frameworks in Python. So even these days, like JavaScript, you can use like Node to build a backend server too. So that's the concept of a REST backend. And then like that's not the end of the story. Like even the REST backend will have multiple things. So the REST, we don't want to store the data in my Java application. So ideally, in a real world scenario, the data is kind of stored in a database. And what happens is the backend service layer um, will use something called a persistence layer. Persistence layer is something that kind of talks to the storage system. So that is you can see that like the persistence layer is talking to the database and it fetches the data. And service layer is something like if I give an example that I needed information about a person, like for my portfolio, suppose I need to get his educational information and then I need to get um, his experiences. So it might be that education is in one database and the experience might be in another database. So there might be two tables. We might get information from two tables. At the service layer, we kind of merge this information and then pass it to the router layer. And so basically, and then the routing layer, what it does is it receives request and sends response. So basically, like the routing layer will send back the response that it received from the service layer, and then the Angular app will show this dynamic information. So basically, this is like I just wanted to mention this thing, like because we don't want to give you the impression that we already know a lot of stuff. We just basically scratch the surface. But as Sia mentioned, that you can like we have these cohorts where there are mentors who kind of shows different parts of the system, like there's course for doing front end, there's course for back end, and there's also other stuff for doing DevOps thing. I don't want to get much more into much more complicated details because for beginners it can get a little exhausted because there are so many things. But the thing is that like there's always a starting point. Everybody starts from scratch, and then over time they learn new things and starts to grow their learning and skills, and then eventually become a full stack developer. Doesn't mean that everybody has to be a full stack developer. There are people who are specialized in front end development who just do the front end part. There are people who kind of specializes in the backend part, so who kind of only works on the RESTful endpoints. There are people who are kind of DevOps. They kind of manage a lot of infrastructure related things and how to build, how to deploy code and maintain stuff. So that is that. And I think like the thing that we want to give as a takeaway is that like like maybe like you build something fun and interesting in 3 days, but obviously that like like there is a this is not the end of the story. You can always learn new things, um, and hope that you had a wonderful 3 days with us. And we like it was an interesting experience for me showing these things to you. But eventually, like this is all from my side. I will hand back the I'll hand back the control back to Siam, the who is the anchor for today, and let him carry the next part of our session.
Hey, thank you, Sajid. Let me see what's going on in terms of, okay. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sajid, for kind of like giving an overview. I think it was important to have an overview. As we said, that this session will be more of a question and answer session uh, than just teaching. So yeah, let's go through the question and answer session. As you know, that we are all professionals working, and then basically trying to arrange these webinars after we come home. So like personally, definitely thankful to like all the mentors for doing all this. I'll jump into the question and answer. So a lot of questions there. So I'll do the anonymous ones first, and then we will go to the other ones. Before we jump into that, just I think we talked about how we like how our bootcamp is structured. So if you have any questions, if you need more clarity, I think our website, we didn't do a good job in the website on uh, like making it clear all the values. So definitely ask us questions about the bootcamp too. But yeah, like I'll go through the just one reminder is that today it's what, let me open the calendar. So November 14th. So we have a batch starting, full stack batch starting on November 25th. So I encourage you guys to apply, and even if you have questions, you can just apply an interview, and you can ask the questions in the interview as well. Okay, so I'll go on the FAQ. So this one is anonymous. Someone just messaged me personally. That is, I really like this 3-day workshop that you guys hosted. I'm from India and currently pursuing engineering in information technology. I'm in the first year now, and I want a little guidance about what certifications to pursue or what coding skills to gain to at least land an internship in some good companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google. So Sajid, I'll ask this question directly to you. You're from Microsoft. Give us some insights.
Sure. So like thanks for the questions. So like first year student, like there's a like we have a long time to get prepared. Important thing is that like whenever we learn something or we study, the purpose of the study should always be that what I'm learning. It's not about like like what I'm learning, and try to learn it meaningfully. And so the thing is that like programming is a little bit different than other kind of other fields. Like some other fields, like we study and we know what it is. Programming is kind of evolving. It kind of keeps changing. Maybe today you learn Angular, like suppose, but maybe like 5 years later there will be new frameworks and you have to learn it again. So the important thing is that like you learn the concepts. You don't learn the you have to try to understand the concept. So like for students in undergrad, like I would say, like make sure that you have good understanding about the data structure thing. You understand how an algorithm works. You know how to attack a problem. You understand things like how in your later years you'll get to know how networking works, and then like the database concepts. These are important. And overall, it is important to make sure that you are doing a lot of programming, because you are not going to be a better programmer without doing a lot of coding yourself. It is not something that you can just study. Okay, I looked into this algorithm. I know and I understand how it works, but it is important to be able to implement it and make sure that you understand like how can I make this a little bit, how can I improve this thing a little bit. So those little things matter a lot. It's not about just knowing the stuff. It's about having passion. It's about giving time. It's about trying to be a little bit creative. And I would say that like you have a lot of time. And I think you also said like what kind of certification is important. Certification, I think certifications are always good. it helps getting jobs. But personally, my opinion is that like certificates are great to have, but kind of like if you are coming from a different background, um, it kind of helps you a little bit more. But if you're like a core computer science student, maybe uh, maybe it is not that important always to have a lot of certifications, but you can always do a lot of certifications that would like that, like the Sakib already showed, like the AWS certification thing. They're very useful because there is a lot of demand for cloud engineers. And similarly, like not only AWS, you could do also Azure certification. And obviously, like sometimes it happens that like maybe in undergrad, you just study C, C++, and then like the job market, there's demand for Java. I'm just for example, though it might be in that case, it might be useful for you to have a certification to show that, okay, fine, I did not learn it in my class, but I took the extra effort to take this certification to learn this thing. So basically, it shows that you have some eagerness from your side to learn, and that is important. So I think, did I answer all the questions or did I miss something, Sian?
No, I think it's good. And we'll get to more questions. There are
Sure.
a lot of questions coming. Um, all right, so let me open up my kind of like internal thread. All right, so what does the certificate look like, or what does it state on it? The certificate we provide, it will say that you have completed this 3-day workshop on these topics and you have successfully deployed it, and then we will give your link in the certificate. So your name will be there and the link will be there. So it's just like a kind of like a small crest uh, for your work. I hope that that clarifies it. For those, today's session is like the homework is optional. Just wanted to say that a lot of people, I think buying domains is cheap now. It takes like you can buy $1 or $2 domains, but even if you don't want to spend that money, completely fine. Just finish up to the last one. That's okay. And that will be considered as the end. Don't worry about buying a domain just for finishing the homework. We'll give you the certificate even if you finish it up to yesterday's homework. So a question for me, that is, what would you say was the most challenging thing when you started programming, and how did you overcome it? Most challenging thing, I would say, for any for me, the in any kind of learning, I especially the first like in the beginning, I think it feels very easy for me for anything when I start to learn, and then suddenly the complexity increases, and then I don't understand anything and I lose the motivation. I stay in that unmotivated and kind of like I lost it phase for a while, and then I just keep grinding, and then suddenly I realize that, oh shit, I think I have passed that like cliff phase. The challenging thing, I would say, like I don't know. In the interviews, I'll tell you about the interviews. So when I was learning in a very crunch mood, very fast. I had to, like I already told about my financial situation. So I was in a very hard crunch mood that I had to get a job soon. And I was living in New York, shared with other people. It was super expensive, so I didn't have like any money saved. So I had the pressure to get a job very fast. Um, I wish that I learned in programming. I wish that I learned a little bit of theory also, because I was just trying to get a job. So I was just like, my focus was like, okay, how can I build my iPhone app? How will I just like, I was focusing 100% in the implementation. But when I went to the interview phase, I realized that in interview, a lot of interviewers ask a lot of questions, which will see that how you understand the concepts. I have seen a lot of people now, they have worked for in the industry for 2 or 3 years. They don't know what a singleton is, what basic concepts of object-oriented programming. So things like this, like overall, I think learning a theory is a little bit also important as long as implementation. So I don't know if that's a challenge, but I wish that someone told me that focus on the theory, but don't only focus on the theory, focus on the theory and the implementation both. Just keep switching. It's a balance. So I hope that's kind of like my only advice for people who are learning software engineering. Try to understand why we are implementing something. And I have seen in developers, there is kind of like a trend that there are some people who are good implementers. So they're always focusing on the implementation side, doesn't care about theory. Their code quality is not good. Maybe the problem could have been resolved in a very easy way. And there is also some people who are just thinking too much and they're not implementing. So it's kind of like a balance. But yeah, in general, I think there is a more tendency, because software development has become so popular, there is a more tendency towards not learning something deeply. So just try to think on, okay, this is the way I'm trying to solve the problem. What are the other ways it can be solved? Can I see other people, how they're solving the same problem? So try to solve a problem in multiple ways, and try to understand why you are implementing that solution. It's just a generic suggestion for like beginner programmers. So the next question is, will we have to purchase domain name? Okay, we already answered that. I have a domain, but plan to use it for another project. Believe there is another way. Subdomain. Okay, super question. Actually, Sajid, I'll point this. We were supposed to talk about subdomains. I think so. Someone has a domain, right? They want to point it to a subdomain. Right now, his domain points to his Vue project, but he wants to do like a resume.subdomain.com. So can you shed some light on subdomains, or anyone actually, Sakib or Sajid, anyone?
I'll go.
Okay.
So I think you can do that. You can obviously do that, but I would say that if you like, one thing you could do is instead of going to subdomain, you could probably like bind the IP address to your server for now, and then you can always get back using the domain to your current project. But if you want to keep both, obviously you can try out subdomain. It should work, and I don't think there should be any issues. But if you do face, feel free to send us a message in our Slack a group. We'll try to resolve it there. But I think you should be able to do it without much problem.
Just want to add something on the Sajid's addition. So subdomains are basically an array code. So you just need to actually add an array code in your domain registry. So then it automatically like point to an IP address. So you can actually have unlimited amount of subdomain under a domain, and then you can actually point to different IP address for different subdomain. So in AWS, you can actually create subdomains, and this is actually called array code. So if you can find this name called subdomain in any other domain register, then look for array code, and then you can do that by setting an array code. So,
okay, sweet. So there is another question. Is there any advantage of specializing in front or backend instead of going for full stack, or vice versa?
Okay, I can answer that. So basically, right now, if you actually have a look on the job description, like people are looking for full stack a lot. But it was like so like 5 years back or like 10 years back, you used to actually see like a job posting where the people are looking for like backend developer or like front end developer. It still add value, but the way actually technology changes. So nowadays, Angular, React, or Vue is very popular, but you never know like what will be popular in like 2 years. Like maybe all three will be gone, new framework will come. So this is why like it's really risky to actually put all of your like effort into like only front end or only back end. It's better to actually know a little bit of all of thing and be a pro on one thing. Like if you really like backend, then invest like 70% of your time on the back end, but know some bit of like front end, some bit of DevOps, this will actually add on your resume, and this will actually make your resume happy. So it's always a good idea to actually be a what's that called, like a jack of all trade and master of one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a great point, and actually I'll share something I learned just like very recently. So there is this jack of all trades. There is this idea called like different like shaped people. So there is I-shaped people. There is like a hyphen shaped people, and there is T-shaped people. And the T-shaped people are in the most demand right now. So if you consider the knowledge, the I-shaped people are people who have like highest amount of depth on something. They just know one thing, and they have like huge depth on just one topic. So that's the I-shaped people. And then there is like the, the hyphen shaped people who are just like jack of all trade. They don't know anything very deep. And then there are T-shaped people who has a wide knowledge on everything, but they're very good at something. So that's what Sakib just said. So all of you guys should target to become T-shaped people, no matter what kind of industry you're working on. So just wanted to add that. Okay, so I will go to the next question. All right, is it possible to land an iOS developer job knowing simply iOS app development and the corresponding languages? I can answer this question. So yes, like right now, if you know, if you know Swift, and ideally, if you know Objective-C, it will help you, because a lot of enterprise level companies, they have legacy iPhone apps. So I know a lot of people are just learning just Swift, but knowing Objective-C will make sure that you are good with that. But yeah, like especially like Apple has a very different kind of unique ecosystem and a crowd under it. When I was learning iOS, I knew that the number of jobs will be very not a lot of jobs, I would say. Like very niche market. It's a very niche skill, but you will always be employed. I have never seen anyone who knows how to make iPhone app not getting employed. It's the niche skill, so it has a I would say low supply and low demand. Low supply because not a lot of people can afford Macs. Not a lot of people goes to this kind of technology, which are kind of like narrows down there. But if you're thinking in a longer term career path, you might also, I think it's a better idea just to keep yourself open. Again, like coming back to that I-shaped, like if you'll become probably like you can be that Apple guy that, okay, you are doing everything in Apple. So Apple, Mac OS X, iOS, you're doing any kind of IoT devices they're launching, but it's kind of like a personal choice eventually. You should be employable even if you're focusing on just one company's technology. Sakib and Sajid, would you guys agree or disagree? Okay, sweet. Okay, so being self-taught and speaking with established professionals in the industry, I have found that even the most popular online programming sources like W3 schools, etc., do not always teach proper coding standards and best practices. Do you have any recommendation for online resources that are known to be reputable and do not share misinformation? I think this is a good question. Can anyone answer this?
Okay, so I'll try to answer the question. So like coding standards and best practices are something like, it's you don't kind of learn it very easily, like, and the standard varies from company to company. Like every company kind of have their own style guide, and like even from Amazon to Microsoft, it kind of varies a lot. And the technology is also kind of different. The technology stack is kind of different, and it gets kind of a little bit different. But ideally, I would say that obviously there are lots of resources. Like there are some good books that I kind of like read. Like I cannot let me try to what's the name? Let me just give me a second. Like Clean Code. There's a book called Clean Code, and there's a book called Clean Architecture. I forgot the name of the guy. Like those books are very good, and you could probably learn some things from there. But like universal standard, that is it's very hard, because but the thing is that like once you kind of know one, it's very easy to translate into something else. But the thing is that like when you are just starting from scratch, it's very kind of hard to maintain everything, because it to be that rigorous. But ideally I would say that like Clean Code and clean programming, I could give the link of the books. Yeah, those are the kind of things that you could probably learn, you could look into and try to understand what are the best uh, techniques or things that you should follow. I have found them pretty useful. So that's the kind of a very generic answer. I know you are looking for a little bit more specific answer, but I could think of the book for the of the two books right now. Like later, I'll try to give you the name of the authors. So you could probably look at them up in the Amazon, but I'll just leave it for now. I have to look that up, information a little bit up. But if Sakib or Siam, you want to add something else, you could also definitely try to add something on.
No, I think we're good. So someone asked, I have a family. What is a good track for good life, work-life balance?
It's a very tough question. I mean, so it depends on the company culture actually. Like some company actually really values your time, and they try to actually schedule your the all kind of deployment and other stuff, so that you don't have to go through the hassle. But definitely, if you choose DevOps, then you won't have any life. You have to wake up in the middle of the night, and you have to fix the server. So DevOps will be uh, a tough track if you because you might have to work in different shift as well. So if you choose your career as a programmer, uh, so if you're a junior programmer, so most probably you won't be bugged in the release cycle. Your boss and team lead will actually take care of all the pain points. But yeah, ultimately, it's all depends on the company culture. So yeah, you want to add something about that?
So I'll add something. So obviously Saki what said is pretty true. Like if you're DevOps, or the more you close to the infrastructure, the more you are going to get into this kind of things, that like this thing is not working, this thing is not. So maybe you have to wake up at night and fix some things, like there's a connection issue there, like this network is down, or this there's a connectivity issue with this database. But like sometimes it happens that in our cases, like we have an online store. So what happens is that like if there's some issue even in the infrastructure layer, infra layer, like we also get paged to make sure that okay, fine. Usually it boils down to the infra guy, but we also have to be present and make sure that it's not something else in the like so bug or something, or things like that. So sometimes we also have to be aware. But I will admit that infrastructure guys or DevOps guys, they're from the work-life balance perspective, their job is kind of a little bit harder from that perspective. And also I just wanted to mention that like I did look up the author name. The author name is like Robert C. Martin. So he probably has like 3 book series. He also has video lectures. You could also look them up. The books are like a Clean Code, a handbook of agile software craftsmanship, and then there's Clean Architecture, and then there's a Clean Code. There's a 3-part book series. So the author is Robert C. Martin. He also has video lectures. I would suggest that you could take that as a starting point, and like once you are experienced, you will be able to understand like how to go on from there. But personally, my suggestion is that you could look up those resources as a starting point. So yeah, I'll give it back to Shyam.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I'll just I just remembered, I think there was a good point Sakib said about company culture. a lot of work-life balance actually depends on which company you work in, and obviously it's technology dependent too, but which company you work in makes a lot of difference, especially if you're working, like some companies are reputed to be very hardcore to their employees, some are more relaxed. I think you guys already probably know, but I just just wanted to show you that Glassdoor has reviews. I think you guys probably already know that Glassdoor has like detailed reviews about companies. I don't know if you guys know of the Muse. Definitely check out the muse.com. Also lot of details about companies. Just look at like company names, and then just go details, like they talk about details about how the company culture is. Just look for the name of the companies and look for the cultures they have. Same goes with Glassdoor. Just name of a company, you will see reviews, ratings. Since I'm talking about resources, definitely some good resources. How to generate your idea on how much you should be paid. Try payscale.com, or else like salaries in Glassdoor. I think they're probably the same. What else? I think I wanted to share some more stuff. Definitely in LinkedIn, there are some stuff which is working out very good. For other people, is that like LinkedIn is the platform you want to be in right now. So you should definitely have a very strong LinkedIn profile. Make sure that you have endorsements, recommendations, and it takes a long time to build that like recommendation or endorsements. So make sure that those are updated. And just the basic idea of recommendations is that you should go to your friend's profile, and then you should recommend them first, and then ask. LinkedIn automatically will pop up like an option. I'll go, since I know that this question was not asked, but since we are talking about resources, so I'll give some quick suggestions which I see that are bad in LinkedIn in a lot of profiles. So one of them is like, so this is one of my friends, Ade, who is like a Forbes 30 under 30. He's a CEO of this company, like moving analytics. So I love his LinkedIn profile, very well, like very well structured. But some of the things, I think what LinkedIn is pushing now is that LinkedIn wants more data. So having more attachments definitely bumps your rank for the recruiter searches. So not only texts, but if you can give proofs. And sometimes these things like certificates doesn't add much value, you might think, but just add whatever like attachment you can add. Like it makes a lot of, like, it can be a media, like a PDF, it can be an external URL, whatever kind of linking you can do. But see, like his detail, some coverages as attachment. I think this is a brilliant way to like leverage LinkedIn's SEO. And then let's go down. I definitely like the, I mean, you know that you can have like the top endorsements in LinkedIn, but definitely like whenever you're endorsing someone, just go to their profile and then endorse them in whatever you think is right. And you definitely have to be working with them in some sort. Even you guys who came here, you guys can exchange LinkedIn in the Slack group and just add each other, and you have actually worked with each other for 2-3 days. So you can even recommend them and just endorse them. And definitely for recommendations, like go give recommendations, ask for recommendation. One last thing, since I'm on a kind of like on a role on suggesting on, I know a lot of developers who are good in programming but not good in showing themselves. So definitely super important is to just like in GitHub, just having like most of the codes pushed in GitHub. Because if you go to your GitHub, then, I mean, I have not been programming for a while, so I'm more like in kind of like managerial role these days. So, but ideally, since you want to get developer jobs, your GitHub, this thing should lead up. So ideally, if you want to get hired as a developer, definitely have like make sure that you're pushing most of your codes in GitHub, and employers like really look at this stuff. So these are just some small tips. I know that you guys didn't ask for it, but just wanted to share those. I thought those will be useful. We will wrap up our meeting in 5 minutes. So if your question is not answered, definitely we'll answer it in Slack. I'll just do a quick like overview summary on like what are the next points, and then maybe you can do like a couple of questions. So what's the next? Some questions probably will be covered. Homework by 30th November, end of this month, to get the certificate from us. You can get it. It can have no value to you. It can have some value, but just giving what we'll do. Stay in touch, like definitely stay in touch with the community in Slack. You guys are already part of the community. Especially stay in touch for suggestions about the next workshop. These are some of the mentors we brought in, and then we will keep bringing mentors from like we have friends in almost all the big tech companies. So in next months, we are thinking we'll probably bring either a mentor from Facebook and Dell. So we have like some people already in our pipeline, but definitely like suggest us what the ideas could be for workshop. Definitely give us feedback. All the feedbacks are anonymous, so don't worry about like even saying bad things or critical things. Yeah, just say what you liked about us, what you didn't like. Give us like anonymous feedback, means a lot. We can improve if we hear. We can only improve if we hear from you. And finally, if you think that this is a valuable thing, if you like us to do more of it, or more of it more often, then you can support us in Patreon, patreon.com/getmehired, or PayPal us, whatever you guys can. And yeah, I think let's do a couple more questions and we can wrap it up. But let me finish this FAQ there. I think like some more. Can you recommend some resources to learn object-oriented programming concepts? That's a good question. Can anyone answer this? Like good resources.
So yeah, Sakib, you can answer.
So what was the question?
Can you recommend some good resources to learn object-oriented programming concepts?
Okay, so like I'll give some my personal input. So like if you are new in object-oriented programming, one resource that I used to find helpful and useful, there is something called like head first. Head first object-oriented analysis. It is from O'Reilly publication. So this book is like it's a very visual book. So like somebody who is kind of learning object-oriented analysis and design, like I would suggest that like if you're a beginner, you might find that this resource useful. And obviously like maybe a little bit traditional and recommending books. Obviously, you can find a lot of information in the internet, but from my personal experience, that like sometimes sometimes back, I used to read this book to brush up my object-oriented analysis. So that's my personal recommendation. But obviously, as I said, like this is for people who are just kind of starting their object-oriented programming or concepts.
Okay, sweet. Someone asked, I recently started solving on sites like LeetCode. I think this is a coding challenge. How do you prepare for coding interviews? Definitely, yeah, LeetCode is the place, and CodeWorks. However, I find even the easy questions on LeetCode difficult to solve, which is completely true. I feel like I have no idea how to approach these problems. So how do you overcome this hurdle for breaking into competitive coding? I would really glad if you guys can talk. Yeah, Sajid, I think you can probably take this question. You're the coding challenges.
Sure. So thanks for the question. But so the important point I want to make to you is that like whenever you start something, it is going to be hard for you. I understand that the easy problems are seemingly hard for you because this is the first time you're attacking the problem. So I would suggest that like keep at it. And I would suggest like LeetCode probably gives you a lot of programming options. My personal opinion is unless you're very comfortable with C++, avoid it because personally I find it a little bit harder to solve problems. Python is probably the easiest. but my personal preference is like kind of doing it in Java or C++, sorry, C#. But obviously, the language is up to you. But I would say make sure that unless you're very comfortable with C++, avoid that. And the more you practice, the more better you're going to get. And I would say that, like when like everybody fails at the first attempt, like it's those failed attempts that is going to make you stronger, and eventually you will overcome your hurdle. But thing is that like you have to give time at it, you have to keep practicing at it, and you never know like when you'll overcome the hurdle. Like some people might be able to do it in 10 hours. I mean, after probably doing 10 hours of practicing, like they might find the easy problems a little bit easier, but for some people it might be 50 or 100 hours. So I would say that like for everyone, everything, when you start something new, it is always hard. Keep at it and try to give effort, and also look up answers and see what you learn. Like solving a problem is not about just able to make sure that the answer is accepted. It is about what did you learn. Like it is usually something you learn, like a concept or thing that you're going to carry over to your next problem. So I'd say take time, don't be frustrated. It is hard for anybody who starts with. So I would say, like keep at it, and eventually you'll be successful. And I'm pretty much sure you'll be successful. But you have to be at it for some time, and then you'll be there. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll just answer one last question and we're going to wrap up. So I think definitely guys, feel free to ask questions in the Slack, but this is the last question. Could you provide me some basic pros and cons on the different types of positions the like get me hired tracks equip you for, and as well as estimate of median pay, different type of job positions? Okay, so I think for the job positions, Saqib can tackle that part and I can tackle the median pay. Saqib and Sajid both, I guess, like the tracks we're teaching, what are the like how does it what kind of technology does it equip the students with?
Even what we are taking on the bootcamp?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, so if you have a look on our getmehired.co site, we train for both full stack and the machine learning track, and we have some extra courses as well, like the like for the coding challenge. We have Sajid is actually taking the coding challenge part, but for the full stack, so we have three courses. We have front end course, we have back end course, and we have the DevOps course. And if you have a look on the current market, full stack is actually has more opportunities. Like if you see in LinkedIn or like any other job site, like in data and job site, then you will see 80% of the jobs are actually for the full stack job. And ML is also like a buzzword nowadays, and ML also has demand. But if you consider the amount of job and how fast and how easily you can actually get like land on a job, then full stack would be the easiest way. If you invest like 40 hours a week for 3 months to 4 months, I know it's for someone who's very beginner, it's tough. But if you actually put like 40 hours, you can definitely land on a full stack job, and we have actually proved that. Actually, you have heard the Asif's story. So yeah, and also also on the ML track there is actually good opportunities, but it's less actually than the full stack track. So yeah, Siam, do you wanna?
Yeah, sure. I'll just tell I kind of like add with Saqib on couple of things. So one is that one question was that what are we equipping you guys with? So technology wise, backend. So you will learn backend, front end, and DevOps. How the Get Me Hired bootcamp work is that once you are in, you can take as many tracks as you want. You can get front end, back end. DevOps, you can even get into the machine learning track, you can do the coding challenges, all are together lumped into the thing. Your inclusion is, your relationship is with the community and not with any specific track. And the way we designed it is a kind of like a long-term relationship. So based on your current situation, we will advise you what is the right thing to do for the current thing. So if you are a beginner level person, I would say that if you are open, then getting into a full stack role is probably, it will land your job easier or faster if you're a beginner level person. And then the technology wise, we teach Angular, backend is Java, database, SQL, MongoDB. If you need more details on the full stack, like technical stack, definitely feel free to email us. But if you want to search like what kind of jobs it will open you up to, you can look for front-end developer. You can search how many, like I live in New York, so I'm just searching for that. Look for full stack developer, look for backend developer, look for DevOps engineer, DevOps developer. There will be some overlaps, but you can actually market yourself in any of these roles. Look for Java developer. I think all these things will open you up. Look for even AWS engineer, because that is also part of our program. You guys wanted to know a salary, so I just did on the technologies we do. I looked for Java developer in New York City, and then you can see the average salary is 89K, lower end is 66K, higher end is 128K. If I look for senior Java developer, you'll see that the salaries will, like the average will probably go up. But as I said, like, I mean, average is still like 90, so, but 135K. So, I mean, it's kind of like an overall idea. It will give the average, it kind of like a range. For machine learning, I won't say that it's wrong or right. And I think machine learning engineers can actually earn a lot of money compared, like there is also an opportunity to make more money for machine learning engineers, because again, this is more like a niche field. Same goes with the same logic. Whenever you're learning something niche, you will have there is lesser supply and lesser demand for this kind of jobs per se. And if you just use your common sense, only the companies which has a lot of data can actually hire a machine learning engineer. Only the companies who work with other big companies' data, B2B companies, they can work with machine learning engineers. So obviously this has to be this is a more niche field. But definitely if your heart is set on like, okay, I'm doing my undergrad or my master's in machine learning, there is a tendency that for getting into data science based or machine learning, applied machine learning jobs, it will be good if you have some kind of baseline like in computer science. So for someone who is not from a computer science background, it's a little bit harder because you need a lot of and if you have background in statistics, if you have background in mathematics, those are also good. But anyone who doesn't have those mentioned skills, it is a little bit harder to penetrate in the stage 1 level jobs. But once you have experience, you can obviously jump in. But the salaries, I would say, since right now it's a buzz, definitely the salaries, average salaries are a little bit higher. For us, we basically teach Python and C++. C++ is used heavily on the industry for production level codes in machine learning. And Python, as you know, that Python is one of the most popular, easiest language to jump in right now. So yeah, so these are kind of like, these are the skills you will be equipped with, and salaries you can just look up in Glassdoor. Yeah, I think for us, this is kind of like the end of our 3-day workshop. Definitely, we need more feedbacks. We got some feedbacks, but feel free to submit more feedbacks. And for the ideas on what we can do in the next workshops. And yeah, I think thanks a lot to Saqib, Sajid, Iftekhar, Ishtiaq, and everyone else who worked in the background to make this event successful. And thanks all the attendees for being with us for all these 3 days, and definitely provide feedback. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you, guys.